your consideration. And that is the synopsis of my recap on that case. So I'll turn that.
So we'll see if anybody wishes to change their vote on that case. Your recommended the case or recap, question by time. Anybody need to know about how they voted? Anybody wishing to change their vote on that case? Two vote changes.
Can you make sure to use the microphones and turn them on?
Sure. Yeah, sorry about that.
Is there anything I need to hit here?
Two votes for change. Sure, yeah, that's.
To make sure that they turn their.
Or I can make it, so I'll make a motion. You want me to make a motion that we vote on if anybody wants to change their vote?
Well, this is effectively kind of like a newly before you. So, are you going to uphold the decision of the zoning administrator or not?
Well, I don't understand it to be newly before us, because I understand it just to be back for a vote, but I think you want me to cast the motion in a. So I guess I
think the last motion is not currently before the board under the rules, correct?
So this is a new deliberation.
Yeah. So,
This is primarily to approve the settlement, Metro.
I don't believe there's a settlement.
Well, there is not a settlement. Metro agreed with the counsel for the appellant to remand it for to see if we would change our vote. So I don't understand it, and I don't think it's appropriate that nobody's been noticed to be here and talk about it. I think it's just here for a vote, and I think that's the proper procedure. So, but if there's a way I need to make a motion different than just we've got two members who've changed, announced they've changed their vote. If that's not procedurally significant, procedurally proper, or we need to do something else, we can certainly do that.
I think you need to have a motion and then everyone seconded.
Okay.
Yeah.
So very good.
I can make a motion. And right before I do it, the provisions of the Tennessee Code annotated are considered as part of the entire record. Is that correct? I make a motion that pursuant to the provisions of the Tennessee Code annotated.
And this is a matter of question. I believe you mean the Metro Code. Right?
Well, the Metro Code and I'm getting there. The Vested Property Rights Act under the Tennessee Code annotated. I move that we affirm the decision of the zoning administrator.
Okay, so there's a motion to affirm the decision of the zoning administrator. Is there a second? I'll second.
And just to clarify, that would be to deny the appeal of the zoning administrator's decision. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. Yeah, to affirm the decision of the zoning administrator.
Okay, so the motion is.
Better figure out how we voted last time.
Well, it was 4-3.
4-3.
Right. So the last time the zoning administrator was not upheld. The zoning administrator was overruled. So the motion now is to uphold the zoning administrator, and there has been a second. So all in favor of upholding the zoning administrator, say aye.
Since that motion failed, right?
Yeah, it fails.
So what happens so we can't consider the votes of the two members that are missing?
Correct.
All right.
Is there a way, if we expect another member to be here, that it could be moved to the end of the docket and re-vote on it?
Your vote.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, under your rules, there are 5 members present. This case actually stays on our agenda for the next 30 days by rule.
But we can move. Can we move it to because that motion just failed as a matter of law, as I understand it, and so we currently don't have an active motion. Can we move the case to the heel of the docket today?
Right, or you can move it to your next meeting.
Well, if Mr. Cole gets here, why don't we I think we can move it to both. I mean, if the vote fails again at the end of this meeting, we'd have another 30 days. So,
Chair, we vested you in that authority, and I have no problems. If you want to move to the end, I'm not going to object.
Okay. So why don't we move to the end, and that way Mr. Cole will be here, and we'll see if we can get this one done one way or the other. So. Okay.
Okay, case 2022-50 will be held in place at the end of today's agenda. We'll then call the first case for public hearing consideration today will be case, top of page 2, case 2022-091. Key Quinn's the appellant, Blue Sky Horizon General Partnership, owner of the property located at 2430 Little Avenue. Ms. Quinn is requesting a variance from the sidewalk requirements in the R6 district. UZO, the appellant's constructing a new single-family residence and is requesting to do so without constructing sidewalks, but is requesting to contribute in lieu of construction. Photographs up to you. Okay, the subject property is located here in red. This is at the intersection of Chester Avenue and Little Avenue. Subject property in questions here. I'll leave this photograph up for a second. Mr. Quinn did file a sidewalk waiver request with my office, which time the committee looked at it, made a recommendation to me that Mr. Quinn build sidewalks. I agreed with the committee's recommendation and entered an order, and this appeal ensued thereafter. Just looking at the subject property. Use along subject property. This will be at the intersection in the upper left-hand corner of Little Avenue and Chester Avenue. Bottom left photograph will be a view of Chester Avenue looking east, and then right-hand photograph will be the adjoining sidewalks across the alley on Little Avenue to the south. And look at the applicant site plan submitted for a permit. Okay. Are there any parties present in opposition to this case? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, I'll remind the applicants they'll have 5 minutes to present their testimony. I'll keep the time here on my phone, and if you'll identify yourselves and make your presentation.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Emily Lee. You may recall this case was during probably after multiple deferrals with Metro. And so I'll just give you the highlights, although Mr. Hargis has hit the property, the situation on the property, but this is a request for a variance from the sidewalk requirements. We're looking to build one single-family home. The property abuts an alley, so it's right up on the alley. So if a sidewalk is installed or constructed, it would be broken up by that alley. We've got a corner lot here. There are over 450 feet of frontage on Chester, and this is, of course, the only lot that has double frontage, so we've got that issue to contend with. We've also got fire hydrant, NES poles, and 4 mature trees. So these are all unique circumstances for this particular property that is tied to the land. We believe those all demonstrate a hardship for us that is tied to the land that is not self-imposed. Additionally, you may recall that at the board's request, we continued this at the last time to meet with Councilmember Benedict as well as NDOT and water, stormwater particularly, to see if there was some kind of alternate design that we could come up with that would meet everybody's approval. Unfortunately, we've reached an impasse there, and I'll let Alicia here weigh into all the details. But ultimately, because we could not come to an agreement, the stormwater improvements, if we install a sidewalk on this property, if no sidewalk is required, there are not going to be any implications for stormwater just from the construction of the house. If the sidewalk is required, there are going to be implications for stormwater infrastructure for 7 or 8 houses down the street that our client would be responsible for installing these stormwater infrastructure improvements to the tune of $150,000. That does not include the cost of the sidewalk. So we would argue that this is an overreach by the city, arguably an exaction by the city. At least it's worth a consideration. We're not requesting no build, no pay. We're requesting to contribute in lieu, which we believe is very reasonable given the circumstances, and also it would keep us from impacting other properties that are not tied to this one directly. So I'll let Alicia get into the details. We have worked extensively with Metro, which is why we have requested multiple deferrals trying to work with them. But ultimately, Stormwater has just said that there's not any kind of agreement that they can come to with us.
Hi, Alicia Allenberger, General Manager for the Paris Group. As you see before you, this is the timeline of events that's taken place from the day after the last BZA hearing we had with you till current. We met on site the day after that board meeting. There were several people from Metro Codes Department there, including the head of NDOT. We also had people from Stormwater there, representatives as well. We came up with 2 alternative plans that we discussed that Paris Group then went back and met with civil engineers and a surveyor to make those happen. That was presented back to this group of people, the assistant director to Stormwater to be exact. They then asked for hydrology reports on both proposals. We presented those, and they came back to us and basically said it was a safety hazard, and also it was deviating from the standards of practice, and that there were several council members that were not okay with deviating from the standards of practice that Stormwater has already set in place, which has landed us back with not being able to put in a sidewalk without creating this huge infrastructure problem. With that infrastructure, it not only creates us having to redo the stormwater, but that stormwater drain is not low enough. So therefore, we will have to disrupt the sewer and water along Chester as you go down that corridor. It will affect 7 to 8 properties that will all have a sewer and water service disruption that will have to be reconnected once these pipes are lowered. So it doesn't just affect us, it affects several families on that street.
And if I could also point out the picture on the right of that, that is the existing sidewalk. That is directly across the street from this property. So there is sidewalk in the neighborhood that will, of course, increase pedestrian mobility, which I understand is a priority for the city. That does exist already. So if we have to add the sidewalk on our property, again, that gets into implications for other properties down the street, stormwater infrastructure improvements that are at an exorbitant cost. Again, we've got the fire hydrant, we've got mature trees, we've got multiple issues that are tied to the land. So we think we would request that this board allow us to contribute in lieu. We're willing to contribute and would request approval to contribute for both frontages so that the money can be used by the city elsewhere to better add a pedestrian sidewalk where it can be better utilized.
Is there a side you can build a sidewalk on and not have to do all the stormwater remediation, or is it just if you do it on if you start doing it, period, it's going to be 150, so you can't divide it up?
That's correct, yes, sir. The issue is what we were trying to do to get away from that is we're trying to deviate from the standard curb and gutter system, which is what is causing us to have to do all these service disruptions and infrastructure. We came up with several plans that the hydrology reports proven that they would work, but at the end of the day, there's just too many other council members and stormwater that didn't want to deviate from that practice.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and discuss. Thank you all.
This one, I guess, is back. We had a public hearing on it in July. This timeline, which I understand, I guess, is part of the record now, having been submitted, is evidence, I think, that makes me feel pretty good about the work that they've done to try to come up with an alternative. And I think that was sort of the concern that we had discussed at the last meeting. I think it consistent with prior cases where there are issues involving bigger questions of stormwater infrastructure and bigger questions of sidewalk connectivity that are better suited to be resolved on a larger departmental scale than on an individual basis, even though I'm as pro sidewalk as they get, and routinely find myself reporting blockages in and around my own neighborhood because I use them all the time. But I think that there's some bigger issues at play. Never come between a dad, a stroller, and a sidewalk and obstruction. Except, right. So I'm inclined to support the request to pay in lieu.
That's a motion. You got a second.
Okay, well, I don't want to cut anybody off.
Go ahead.
All right.
The silence is deafening over on this side of the room.
Well, I will make a motion that we approve the request to pay in lieu.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of, there's a motion to,
That's just declare the hardship being.
Oh, thank you, yes. The hardship being the nature of the lot, both the hydrology information and the stormwater infrastructure, making it such that compliance with the requirement would not be feasible.
And for mature trees.
Yes.
I'm going to be consistent, at least for a change.
okay, there's a motion to approve with the condition that they pay in lieu of them for both sides of the street, and there's a second. No further discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, next case.
Mr. Hargis, is your microphone, I want to make sure, have
Yes,
we resolved those issues?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Got 'em. We've gone from always on to manual control over here, so you are
Outstanding.
now all on. I am as well, hopefully. So, if not, I'll get a visit from our Metro 3 folks again. The next case before the board, case 2022-110, Mr. Gilbert Ezel is the appellant and owner of the property located at 1601B Shackelford Road, requesting a variance from street setback requirements in the R10 district. The appellant is seeking to construct a carport referred to the board under Section 1720.060. The appellant has alleged jurisdiction under Section 1740.180. Item D. Is the applicant present? All right, sir. Well, I'll go through the slides first, Mr. Ezel, and then. Oh, sure. So, Mr. Chairman, we have a preliminary announcement from the appellant here.
We defer 30 days in order to negotiate with the folks who are objecting.
Okay, you want a deferral for 30 days? Anybody have any objection to that? Well, okay, I'll make a motion, we defer it for
Second.
30 days. Second. All in favor?
I think we'll have to defer it. I think instead of 30 days, it'd be 2 meetings.
November 17th.
November 17th.
November 17th
Yes.
will be the date.
Yeah.
It will be deferred until November 17th.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's that?
Chairman?
Still within 30 days?
Yeah.
With that, case is deferred till November 17th, and we'll place it on that agenda. Moving right along. The next case before us, case 2022-121, Mr. Brandon Engel is the appellant, Key Motel LLC, the owner of the property is located at 1414 Dickerson Pike, requesting a variance from the fence height requirements in the CS UDO district. The appellant has seeking to allow the legal use of an existing fence along Dickerson Pike, referred to the board under Section 1712.030, letter E26. The appellant has alleged jurisdiction under Section 1740.180. Item B, I know the appellant's present. Are there any other parties present in support or opposition to case 121? Okay, Mr. Chairman, seeing none. I'll go through the slides first, and I'll ask the applicant to come forward to the table. The subject property is located on the west margin of Dickerson Pike, south of Trinity Lane. It's the parcel in red here, just south of Schwab Elementary School. An aerial view of the subject property. And let me stick to this one. This comes before the board subject to a property standards abate notice. The gentleman was cited for some fencing along the property lines. The inspector originally abated him for the properties. Sorry, let me get over to the right screen so I can use my pointer. The inspector originally cited the applicant for fencing along the northern property boundary along Schwab School and for fencing along the parking lot area. After consultation with the inspector, it was actually determined that the violation occurs here along Dickerson Pike. And just to recap the board, the reason this fence and subsequent taller fences along the property lines are not in violation, this is in commercial districts, and once we clear the 10-foot setback, there's actually not a height requirement in commercial zones for fencing. It is subject to the
So
zoning code.
in that picture, which is the
So in this case, the only portion that is in violation would be this fence.
just that part there?
Yes, sir. This fence right here, approximately 6 feet tall. It is within the first 10 feet of the right-of-way.
It's limited to 3 feet if it's a
2.5 feet in height on solid and 6 feet with an open fence. But this is, being a solid fence is the violation. This fence is beyond the 10-foot setback, so is not a violation. So what's before this board today would be this fencing area located here. And as you see, it's within 10 feet of the back of the sidewalk, which is the approximate right-of-way location. That is the case record that we have it. Mr. Engel, if you'd like to come forward. Identify yourself and make your presentation. You'll have 5 minutes to present.
Hi, my name is Brandon Engel. I run this property. It's a hotel, swim club, bar type thing over on Dickerson Road. When Mr. Pinnock came out and talked to me about this fence, I also thought he was talking about the one by the school. So then I've kind of had to readjust, kind of address this fence. This fence exists for two reasons. One, to cover, we have a bunch of electrical equipment, condensers for ice machines and coolers and stuff that run back because there's no room behind that building on the left side of it to actually have any of that equipment because it butts up against that other property. And so this fence is to basically, one, keep it from being an eyesore when people pull up to our property because it's the first thing you would see. And then two, we have a lot of foot traffic across our parking lot and the front of our property that things just get tampered with pretty frequently. And so having that solid fence there is helpful to keep people out from, we have a camp of people that live in the woods next door to the left there that have pretty frequently tried to tap into our electricity and other things like that. And, police department is aware. They've started fires over there. The fire department's aware, but there's not a whole lot that can be done at this point, from my understanding. So we requested that fence remains, to keep the front of our property looking appealing, and then also to keep people from messing with very expensive equipment that's right behind it.
How tall is the equipment itself in there? Is it?
So there's electrical boxes that are, honestly, let me pull up one of my pictures so I can tell you.
Mr. Hargis, can you put the picture back up of the front on of the fence or the?
Yeah, so it looks like the tallest piece, which there's two of them, they're probably about 5 feet tall. They're just below it. Yeah.
So this isn't really an occupied space. It's just like utility equipment out there.
That's correct. It's also our access point to get to the side of the building which is where they're trying to tap into electricity a lot. And it's 23 rooms, hotel rooms. And each room is it's a motel, so it's an individual entrance. So each room has a mini split AC unit, and all those actual units are on the back as well. So that's how we access that. It's like a maintenance access.
Okay.
So is this before us because somebody reported this, or did you self-report it, or?
Mr. Pinnock came out, the inspector, and he saw it and we talked about it.
After it was installed?
Well after it was installed. I've only been there about 6 months, so it was installed. It's been open for 3 years. I think it was installed.
Okay, so it was installed before you bought the property?
Yeah.
Okay.
And can you go, Joe, back to the map? Yeah, that perfect, yes. And just where the tree fence line is, I guess that's on the south side of the property. Is that the property line, and it basically takes that shape? So it's kind of an odd.
Yeah, it's kind of like a wedge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And that property has already been bought, the one next to us, by a developer. It's going to be like 2,000 affordable housing units, but it's set back a good ways. Yeah, correct.
Further questions of the applicant? Okay, we'll close there is no opposition is our call, so we'll close the public hearing and discuss.
I mean, it seems like, I mean, it's definitely an older building in itself, and it seems like the point of that ordinance on the fence side is to promote, a pleasant, pedestrian experience and visual appearance in the front, and so with this uniqueness of the utilities being on that side, it's helping both the cause of both of those things. So it seems like a reasonable request for a variance.
But I'm still not seeing the hardship, and I know that to me, the perception is like it's self-inflicted, right? There's other places on the site where that equipment can go, even be roof mounted. So I'm just not understanding why it has to be up front, or it could just be seen with a lower fence.
Because it could be seen and still protected by a fence that's not opaque. And I know he has a concern with security and someone accessing the equipment. So is that what you're saying, maybe a fence that's not so opaque? Or?
I think it's complying with the regulations for the fence. And if that results in, I don't know, some, problem like vandalism or something, then the equipment can be moved. There's other places where the equipment can go.
Do you care if we does anybody object to open up the public hearing? Because I'd like to ask, was the equipment behind the fence installed when you bought the place too?
It was already there. So
and it's an ice maker and what else?
Ice maker, walk-in cooler condenser. There's a really big electrical panel for the front of the property. Let me look and tell you what else is there.
And what about the ability to put those appliances, I call them appliances, they sound like appliances. What about the ability to put those?
I wasn't a part of the install, so I'm not positive why they chose that location, other than I know the rest of the property is highly designed, and so putting and honestly full. Can we pull pictures back up at all?
Sure.
Just that aerial picture, if you don't mind, I think would be nice. So it's going to be hard to kind of, I don't know that there's another place that stuff could live and also access that same building, because that building runs back straight this way. Once you get in front of the building, it's a pool deck. So there's a pool deck with a pool. And then behind that building, there is another building, which is it's 6 additional rooms, and you don't have access to the building that power supplies, or that the ice maker is in the front of that building, in the actual bar space. So the way it's set up is the very first part of that building is the bar, and then you go outside and back inside to get to rooms, if that makes sense.
How old is that building?
The Key Motel, I believe, was built in 1958.
Okay. So it's suffice to say, it very much predates the zoning code in that respect. Yeah. Okay.
And the building, but not that renovation. That renovation is pretty current.
Okay.
The renovation's 2018, 2019.
Okay.
Can you back out of that picture some to give us a bigger view? Because does the property line follow pretty much that fence?
Yes, sir, it does.
So it's in the back, is it very narrow back there?
Yes, sir.
That parking lot next door, is that part of the premises?
Are you looking north of the building?
Correct.
So north of the building, the large parking lot is Schwab Elementary.
That's not your parking lot?
No, sir. There's a fence there. You can't quite tell, but there's a fence there, and then there's a small parking lot in the front, kind of set down. That's our parking lot. And we have one space for each motel room that we have, and then we have a dumpster, recycling, and grease trap in the only other spot open in that parking lot. Correct.
So what's there's a looks like the same color roof and a white building in the back.
That's the additional building I was talking. It's six more hotel rooms.
Those are rooms back there. Okay. And then there's some green space there. Is that just kind of like?
That's our lawn. So there's like a seating area in the middle, and it's a public use area, and it also has access to just north of the pool. There's cabana spaces that we lease out that are like little booth spaces you can rent for the pool.
Do you know, and you may not know if you've only been there 6 months, but do you know if the utilities were in this location and before the renovation? Was there the electrical panel there? Was there walk-in cooler, whatever, on there?
There was a bar there already, so I'm assuming they had something like that. I don't know what was added and what wasn't.
Okay.
And can you clarify one more time? Because I think some of us thought there was mechanical equipment in this area.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure I understand. It's an ice maker, a cooler. Is the cooler for drinks or?
It's a walk-in cooler, yeah. For
walk-in cooler.
Yes, ma'am.
And an electrical panel? And
Our electrical meter is back there, and then the main electric coming into the building, to the property, is right there, which I'm not sure who decided that placement because it was already there.
And to clarify what the board member is saying, the cooler is not out there. The condensing unit for the cooler and the ice maker are out there. Not that,
they couldn't put it on they couldn't put that on the roof. A lot of times they'll put that on the roof, but it's a pitched roof all the way down, so they couldn't put it on the roof, and there's no room behind that building. So what I thought you were asking about, Mr. Pepper, on the left side of that building, that property line, it's about 1.5 to 2 feet wide behind that. So it's literally big enough. We have an AC hanging off the back, and I have to walk under each one. Like I can't walk to the side of it. So that's where I would think that equipment could live, but there's no room for it there.
Any further questions to the applicant?
I'm still.
Okay, you got further questions?
No, I'm trying to figure out what's in there too.
Yeah, it's the condensing unit, not the actual ice maker, not the actual cooler.
No, the ice maker and the cooler are inside the bar.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
It's the condensation unit.
Correct, yeah.
All right, well, unless anybody has any more questions, we'll close the public hearing and discuss.
All of your control of electric is for that row of units is in that area, the meters and everything else?
The meter's right there, yes, sir.
Have you priced how much it would cost to move any of that stuff?
No, sir, I didn't see there being a reason to, but I could. I can tell you that it would be
Don't do what you guys.
a lot of money.
Yeah, no, I'm just now I'm looking at our spurts on
this is an assumption just based on what I do know about the building and what I can see here. I would assume you probably have to rewire a large portion of the building to be able to move that, and that would be a very extensive.
So let's go ahead and close the public hearing. That way we can discuss, and that way the applicant doesn't feel like he's got, if we're talking, he knows not to. So it's, I got to say, my sympathies always lie with somebody who buys a building and it's built out in a certain way. But I think to Mr. Cole's point, this stuff could be moved. I'm not sure how it's going to look when the applicant could decide that I'm just not going to move it and I'll remove the fence and I think actually probably even a chain link fence would be considered a clear fence. So I'm wondering what we're going to get if I think Mr. Cole's got a valid point, which is, it could be moved and the fence could be moved somewhere on the property. I do think that the property is very narrow at the back, but I got to say on this one, I got to think about it. I want to hear from everybody else because, I do think that somebody who is not, to me, it's not self-imposed because the applicant is not the one that did all this, but nevertheless, there's got to be a hardship. So
yeah, well, the two things that came to mind, and I don't know if Mr. Hargis can maybe answer this. Looking at the code, it's unclear to me if there's a provision or requirements that from either codes or potentially from NES regarding placement and protection of exposed utility equipment like this. Is there anything that you know of?
Not off the top of my head, no, sir.
Okay.
I could, see if this was an older building and that equipment had been there and existing for a long time. But this is it's a fairly new renovation. This was renovated in 2019. I think it's put there because it's a highly designed space. This is a pretty swanky space. So they have a pool, they have cabanas. So this was probably the leftover region on the site where that equipment could go. But I mean, there are other places equipment can go. As architects, we do this all the time. We figure out where things can live. So I'm not.
Yeah, the only thing is, I think that the testimony was that the actual structure was built in the 50s.
Yeah, I mean that's what I heard too, and I think that there is a nobleness to reusing old structures and repurposing them and looking at where this old structure and how it's sited and all things. There's not a lot of places you can do that, especially since and this is very characteristic of motels from this era. You have the lobby, bar, restaurant, whatever you have up near the front, and you have rooms going back. So the bulk of the utilities would need to be up at that front of the building anyways, or you're running things back all the way across all these rooms and things like that. That's consistent with structures from this era and of this type. So the way I look at it is I do see a hardship, and then I also ask the question is, what are the, I do, I hear his concern with the security as well. I know that's something, that may not be a longer term concern if this property next door is being redeveloped, but it could, but it's certainly a concern now. I look at kind of also, I mean, you think about like what is this? What are the other solutions for him? And that's not our job to figure that out. But it seems like this is probably the best solution to his hardship.
And the hardship to you is what?
The hardship is the unique shape of the lot and the unique characteristics of the lot. It's not a rectangular lot that he has a blank page with. He's working with an existing lot, oddly shaped lot, and an oddly shaped existing building as well. That's already positioned on that lot. So you don't have all the freedom to move things around like he would on a.
But are you taking into account there's an addition that they put on the rear of the building that's newer construction,
Right, I am, but just looking at the site plan, that is a long way away from this portion of the building. So you likely, you wouldn't want to put condensers and things like that far away from the area where they're being used.
Yeah, I think the key is that subsection A of section 17.40.370 does give us the ability to kind of find other extraordinary and exceptional conditions. I think the shape of the lot, I think the pre-existing nature of the structures, I think, frankly, to the extent that there were utility components, I don't know what, if we have any testimony or anything about the utility components that were there before, but I'm inclined to support it.
Are we dealing with a situation where they could have another entranceway into the dancing hall or into the lobby, so that they could use some of that space? They elected to put it there, and believe it or not, Mr. Cole, you sort of have brought me away to your thinking, because the renovations were done and the codes were in place when they were put there. And I don't do what our architects do, so I'm just kind of looking at it. And at first, I didn't think it was a bad deal. I was going to say, well, you can't put any signs on there because that dancing across here is just tacky as hell. But
That's the whole point.
I understand that. But as we're talking about it, and we know when the renovations occurred, they sort of have brought this on themselves in a certain sense. They could have modified the building where it presently is and changed it and had the entranceways around on the other side.
I do understand that point, but my counter to that is that the fence is not there because the condensers are there necessarily. It's because they needed to protect the essential parts of the building infrastructure from people getting to them, and that's a valid concern. And you know, there's I know of some other encampments for people experiencing homelessness elsewhere, that some of the business owners around that have similar concerns, because there's things get gone sometimes, and so I mean, a fence is not the fence has less permanence, in my opinion, than a building or something like that. Like, if there is a reason to, if there isn't the reason to protect it in the future that there is there now, it may not be there, it may be different. I don't know.
Well, Mr. Hargis, is there anything in the record that this fence was there at the time of final inspection before any sort of use or occupancy certificate was issued? Sorry,
Peyton likes to dig deep into the record. Deep tracks.
I can get that information for you, Mr. Bradford. I don't have it readily available here, but I'll use a different terminal to pull information to see.
I guess meanwhile, while we're waiting, I'll say I hear all sides here, and as much as I wish the equipment wasn't in the front of the building, I don't think we can require him to move the equipment. So I do think the equipment's there, it's going to stay there, and the option is the fence may be taken down, and I think it would be more of an eyesore to see the mechanical equipment and the electrical equipment. And I don't think it's not too long of a fence. It's not like it's taking the whole block. It's just taking that one area. And I don't see any issues. It's not up against a road where somebody's driving and they can't see past the fence. That's always my concern, because that happens to me. And I like to see cars coming at me when I drive. So it's don't want to get hit by a car. I'm stalling here, so to give Joey a little bit more time. So I don't know. I wish it could be designed better, but it just wasn't. And I think the reality is that, like what you said, the reality will be worse.
It could be, I think. Mr. Hargis, do you think this will be available, or should we go ahead and move this to a vote? Okay.
Anyone else want to stall?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question. Yeah, I agree. I don't think you can have them move the units. I mean, the units are not the issue. It's the fence around the units, and and there was clearly not intended originally. Well, and I guess Mr. Hargis helps to confirm there originally wasn't that fence around the units, and if there was, and it was clearly passed by codes, when it was renovated. So it seems like a very, very minor infraction and it doesn't really have any negative impact. What is the negative impact of letting this fence stay there? Like as one of the ways I look at it. I think there'd be more negative impact if it's not there. If you're seeing the mechanical units, if people
Other than it's illegal, then what's the problem with it? I guess is now I'm looking at it a little bit more harshly than I probably should be.
But it's not illegal if we give it a variance, I guess.
Oh, I know. Then it wouldn't be, but right now it is. Yeah.
Well, I think Mr. Call's points are really good points. To me, it's a close case. I will say, I would support it. And the tipping point for me is because the applicant, this is not self-imposed, and also he does not have to move the condenser, and I think you could end up potentially with something that's not as visibly attractive as what there is now, even though what's there now is not code compliant.
2017, this aerial, let's see,
This is pre-renovation.
looks like there in 19 with a chain, the whole site has a chain link fence on
There's the
it.
condensers.
Looks like they just blacktop the
There's the
parking
condensers
area.
there.
21.
I mean,
In the steel, the copper.
21 is when the
No, they
fence,
put
somewhere
fence up.
between 19 and 21 is when the fence went up. So,
to me, they look better with the fence there, although I agree it's, and
You don't want a mural in there or something?
No, I don't want a mural.
I'll make a motion that, based upon the exceptional and unique nature of the property and unique characteristics of the property based upon prior use, that we approve the variance in the fence height requirement as requested.
I'll second it.
okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the variance. Any further discussion? It looks like Mr. Laws has some further discussion.
Would you object to a condition that it not be used for advertising or signage or anything like that? In other words, it stays as it is now or whatever color. But I don't want to have, like, it's got dance next to it, okay? You don't want it getting gaudy up there. And I've got the applicant sort of smiling at that one.
Do we have the authority to?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the sign regulation, I mean, it'd be considered, Mr. Hargis can correct me, I'd assume that would be considered a sign at that point.
Yes.
We wouldn't want a sign on there detracting from the really cool, seriously, dive motel sign. I hope you maintain that. That looks original, so.
I don't have, do you have?
I have no objection.
I have no objection as well.
Okay, so there's a motion that's now been amended and a second. Further discussion.
If they move the condensers and what have you, does it go away? Now, that's the question. If they say they decide they want to move them, or they start moving or replacing them with something else, I mean,
I don't know how that gets enforced exactly, but yeah, I mean, I think that would be fine to have a condition that the fence would go away if the utilities are moved. Unless Mr. Hargis says we can't do that.
We can't.
Yeah, well,
wait a minute. I've watched his head go around in a circle. That means a yes, no, and a maybe.
Do I believe this board has the authority to make someone move utilities? No.
No. But if they replace them and move them someplace else,
then the variance for the fence would go away.
they relocate stuff and poof, this goes away.
Sure.
Okay, so for the record, let's restate the amendments. Why don't you remake the motion, and it's to approve it with two conditions.
Yes, I make a motion that we, based upon the unique characteristics of the property and both physical and use, that we approve the variance as requested, subject to the condition that the fence height variance terminates upon, or excuse me, that the fence height variance is not permitted if any of the electrical equipment is moved, and that
relocated. If the utilities are relocated.
Utilities are relocated, and that no signage is
No signage or anything like that.
to be permitted on the fence.
Basically naked.
Okay, and there's a second?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, so that passes 5-1. Thank you. That is the original sign, isn't it, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir.
It looks like it.
That's the original one.
It looks like
That's the
it.
shape of a key.
Chairman, the next case for the board, case 2022-133, Mr. John A. Hooks II is the appellant and owner of the property at 1204 Blackfoot Court, requesting variance in the rear setback requirements in RS10. The applicant is seeking to construct an addition to the rear of the residence, referred to the board under Section 1712.020A. Appellant has alleged jurisdiction under Section 1740.180, Item B. Are there any parties present opposed to this case? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, Mr. Hooks, you'll have 5 minutes to present just after my presentation. The subject property you see is located here in red, toward the end of the cul-de-sac at Blackfoot Court. Again, subject property area photograph. This is a view of Mr. Hooks' residence from the street, the adjoining properties, and the addition location as proposed by the applicant would come off the back of the house here. And we denied the permit. It encroaches into the 20-foot rear setback. And showing a zoom in, that's the, there's a 10-foot public utility easement, which Mr. Hooks is staying out of, approximately looks like 11 feet off that. So that's the variance request is for that addition here. All right, Mr. Hooks, I'll turn it over to you for 5 minutes.
Looking to put addition on the house.
Sir, could you state your name and address for the record, please? Sir?
All right, my name is John Hooks II. My address is 1204 Blackfoot Court, Madison, Tennessee.
Okay.
Was trying to get a building permit and, of course, followed all the steps with applying for the variance. I had to be turned down, of course, applied for the variance. I mailed all the letters out to all of my neighbors. There's 216 of them. I've spoken with about 20 of them. All of them don't have a problem with it, especially the ones to the right and to the left of me, Mr. Cunningham and Mr. Neely. Mr. Neely owns the house that is if you're looking at the drawing, he is to the left, to the right of me. Mr. Cunningham is to the left of me. They have no problem with it. Miss Celia is directly behind me. She has no problem with it. Just looking to, I don't need the full 20 feet. I just need about 10 feet of it. Go into it about 10 feet. The reason for the addition is I'm going to take care of my mother, and we're redesigning the house so she'll have, when the time comes, she'll have handicap accessibility to be able to get in and out of the house from that back part of the house.
Okay. Any questions? Have you checked with a neighbor who it looks like your property backs up to?
Yes, that's Miss C. I've checked with her.
She's okay
fine.
with it?
She's okay with it. Okay. And the one that is directly next to her, which is Heather McLeod, she's fine with it as well.
So all the contiguous properties are fine with it?
All of them are fine with it.
Do you know who Henry Carter is? We have a letter, or we have a note in our record that says it was an objection letter. Do you know who Mr. Carter is?
I do not.
It looks like there's on the drawing, a little outbuilding. Do you have a shed in the back?
When I bought the house in 2005, that is a cover over the patio. That's what that is, and that was done in 1980.
It's kind of, I think what Mr. Laws is referring to is kind of the very bottom of the screen there. You can kind of see it barely poking onto there. There's a little rectangle back there.
Yeah, it's a little.
Yeah, you can kind of see it.
And if you can see that, you're doing better than me.
This guy right here, is that an outbuilding or something? Or?
No, that's not. There's nothing there. There's nothing.
Nothing there now? Okay.
Okay.
Seems like there's a lot of land in your backyard. Why couldn't you change the orientation of the addition and not encroach into the setback? I don't have your floor plan, so I can't look at it myself.
The reason why I don't want to go to the right or to the left is a couple of reasons. I work for the Nashville Fire Department, so we are always challenged with getting between houses and getting equipment in between houses. So with this piece of property, I can't go left, I can't go right. Well, I could, but I would be that much closer to somebody on either side. Mr. Cunningham's house or Mr. Neely's house. Mr. Neely's house is actually like a group home where they keep older people and they take care of them with the handicap accessibilities. If, God forbid, something were to happen and you're that close and you have a house fire, the heat from that would radiate to that house. That's why it's safer for it to go straight back. If, in case God forbid, if something happened.
Wondering why you can't go closer to the covered patio.
Yeah.
There's a picture window right there, and that's for the natural lighting coming into the house. And if I did that, I would cover up. There would be no means of egress in that area of the house.
We didn't see the floor plan, so we have to ask the question.
I'm fine.
Any further questions? Okay, we will close the public hearing, Mr. Hooks, and discuss. The hardship is what, the hardship is the lot shape would be.
It's a unique shape.
It is a unique shape, yeah.
And it's unique that the house is pushed so far to the back of the lot, probably in the sense that there's not really much room back there to do anything for a lot of this size, acreage or whatnot. Look at Mr. Cole. He's thinking right now. I can see the wheels turning.
You all made a good point about going plan north. There's quite a bit of land within the setbacks. I do see the hardship though of having a wedge-shaped lot, which then pushes the house back further, which then puts you closer to the rear property line.
Can we open up? I just want to ask them.
Sure. Do you might object to reopening the public hearing? Okay, no.
It goes back, you said that, at least I want to make sure I understood you, that you didn't need the entire amount going back on the encroachment. Was that correct? Or
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and continue to discuss. So I think we've identified, we have at least a few members that believe there's a hardship. So I guess the question is, what, in light of the hardship, is what's being done reasonable? And does anybody have a motion or further?
I'll make a motion that we grant it based upon the odd shape of the lot. And not very often do we have an expert on fire come up here and tell us, and the reason that he's doing it the way he's doing. Makes perfect sense to me. I mean, if I was one of the people, I'd want to be able to get out if it's on fire, so, and any of the others. So I think it's reasonable in the proposal. So I make the motion, we approve it based on the hardship of the lot and its design and the adjoining properties.
Seconded.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes 6-0. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, 135.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the last case on the public hearing today, case 2022-135, Beeman Buick GMC is the appellant. BG Nashville Bag Real Estate Company, LLC, is the owner of the property at 5312 Mountain View Road, requesting a variance in the number of wall signs. The applicant's request has been amended so as there is no longer a side setback variance before the board. And I'll talk about that in just a second. The appellant is seeking to erect 3 wall signs referred to the board under Section 1732-120. The appellant has alleged jurisdiction under Section 1740-180, Item B. The applicant's present. Are there any parties present opposed to case 135? Mr. Chairman, I'm seeing none. Get the applicant come forward, and members of the board, I'll talk a little bit about this case because I don't think you've seen this particular variance before. The subject property is located here in red. This is at Bell Forge West subdivision down in the Hickory Hollow area. The former Hickory Hollow Mall is to the northwest of the site. Here, where my pointer is. This entire area was recently added to a corridor design overlay. And so I believe you have some comments from the planning department since it is in an overlay. But the corridor design overlay established some requirements for external cladding of new structures. But one of the things that it amends in the zoning code is the signage allowabilities. Previous to this overlay, the applicant's request was allowed. They were restricted to 15% of each facade of that building in wall signage. The corridor design overlay changes the sign requirements here, limiting to the signage to 2 wall signs total on the building facade. And the applicants requested 3 wall signs, and I'll show you those here. The part of the request that was amended, originally the applicant had proposed a new ground sign at this northeastern corner of the property. There's an existing ground sign in the northwestern corner of the property that they're going to reutilize that non-conforming sign and alter that signage for a new ground sign. This is looking at the subject property. Renovations are currently going on out here. The proposal is for 3 wall signs, one with the GMC logo, I believe in here, and I'll let the sign contractor, and then 1 sign over the service department and another sign located on that facade. And again, the other 2 photographs were dealing with the ground signage portion of the code. But previously, with this code change and the change of use that's occurring on the property and renovation, he's required to comply. And so they've sought a variance in the number of wall signs. I did receive a call from Councilmember Stiles, who supports his request this morning. And
Mr. Hargis, you mentioned a change of use. Can you speak to that? Is it a different use for this property than it was
It is
before?
not, and I apologize for that. It's the same use.
Okay.
Car dealership previously, and it's a car dealership now. But the percentage of renovation cost versus the assessed value of the property triggers compliance with the code as it's written today.
Okay.
I didn't speak of it.
Since I don't have Wi-Fi, I can't open it. Didn't planning approve this too?
Approval.
They recommended approval?
They did.
Okay.
And then the wall signage is proposed going here and along the service department. The Beeman logo, the Buick GMC logo, and then, of course, the sign setback is now not before this board. Leave it with that elevation drawing and turn it over to you, sir. And if you'll identify yourself, you'll have 5 minutes to present your case.
My name is Guy Dearman. I'm with Boom Sign and Lighting.
Can you give us your address for the record, please, sir?
Oh, sorry. My name's Guy Dearman. I'm with Boom Sign and Lighting. You want the job address?
That's fine. That'll work.
Okay. It is 5312 Mountain View Road, Antioch, Tennessee.
Well, I meant either your address or your employer's address.
Okay. 184 Sharp Springs Road, Smyrna, Tennessee.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
This package right here, the reason why they wanted to go for a variance on this is because it's a pretty basic GMC sign package. All their dealerships have their logo. They have their name of their logo and where their service department is, along with not just GMC, but Chevrolet, Ford, Dodge. They all have, their dealer name, their logo, and a service department sign. And they're not wanting to deviate from their basic sign package. You go right down the road to Dodge. I put all those signs up. They have a ton of signage. They have a sign for every type of car that they sell at that lot.
Okay.
And the thing that they're asking is just to be able to have their logo, their name, and their service sign.
This is a full franchise dealer, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, any questions from the applicant? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and discuss.
How are they lit?
LED. Yes, sir.
Member Wallace, why did you ask that question?
Well, because it's a dealership, part of the franchise agreement between the owner of the dealership and the particular manufacturer will require them to have certain types of required signage, or there are usually either penalties. I've shut enough of these dealerships down over the years. They're all the same. So that's the only reason I asked that question.
Well, the council person is for it, and planning has recommended approval, but it is a variance, so I think we're going to have a, it's not a.
That was my one question on asking. Why?
So I live like 3 blocks away from this, so very familiar with this intersection. This side of the building faces away from the main intersection. And on the back side of this building is a large, like L-shaped strip mall that's always bright. So it's not like this is backing up to a neighborhood or anything like that.
Like our last meeting where the people were afraid of seeing the signs.
Right. This is a different case. And across the street, that big parking lot playing north, that's a Kroger's and a Kroger's gas station. I mean, this intersection is just pretty bright in general, and the signage is on the back side.
That's Hickory Hollow Parkway we see right there, right? Like up on the top?
No, that's Bell Road.
Bell Road, yeah. Oh, yeah. Bell Road, sorry, yeah.
That's Bell Road.
So what's the hardship, though? That's what.
Yeah.
Everybody's for it, and
right.
I don't see any, and the applicants, gives.
I see a curve on the edge of the lot there.
Shape of the lot.
The shape of the lot.
I think that lot curve is presents a challenge.
I have the partial viewer that we can actually see the outline of the lot.
And Joey, are there any different variance requirements for a sign rather than like a different type of variance? No. Okay. I mean,
it's easier when there's special exceptions.
That's when there's.
Seems to me that if they didn't have the signage in place, they couldn't display to the public how to go.
Where to go when you're outside.
Yeah, where is service and what is the name of what's in this building, and that's the intent of signage. And with a recommendation from planning to approve, I think maybe the hardship could be that there would be, if the signage wasn't there, there'd be lack of wayfinding. So it'd fall under that unique
characteristics.
Okay.
Yep. Lack of wayfinding potentially at a prominent intersection where lots of vehicles are going to be going in and out and creating a potential safety issue as well.
So I'll make a motion that we approve based on the unique characteristic of lack of wayfinding.
Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that passes. Yep. We've got one more. I think I said this is the last one, but it's not, because we put one to the heels, Mr. Cole, that we're going to come back to.
And Mr. Hargis, if you could
I'll recap
give it
everything.
A new recap.
From the top. Case 2022-50, this case comes back before the board on a remand agreed order between the Contractors Council and Metro Legal to be placed on this agenda today. The original case was an appeal by neighbors of my interpretation of the zoning code and issuance of a permit. The original permit issuance was at 60 feet, which was triple the table. At that time, the zoning code set a maximum setback by which you could push a building back, which was 3 times the table listed in the zoning code. That ordinance has since amended that, so it's neither here nor there. But I raise it to say you won't see that type of appeal coming forward. The board heard the case in May of 2022. A motion was made to overturn my decision and that the permit should be essentially the permit should have to have an 80-foot setback, which would be more in line with the other homes that were out there beyond the 60 feet. The board's motion to overturn the zoning administrator was made by Tom, seconded by Christina. The vote was 4-3. Those voting for the amendment were Tom, Christina, Logan, and Peyton. Those voting against were Ross, Joseph, and Ashanti. Were not here. So it has been remanded to you back from the court for consideration. Discussed by your counsel, obviously feel free to question, was to make a new motion on this case. So I'll turn it.
Do you remember the case, Mr. Cole? It was you might want to.
The entire neighborhood. It was.
Yeah, it was the one.
Oh, yeah.
It was the one that. So the vote at that, the motion that was made then was to find that the zoning administrator erred, correct, and it passed 4-3. So an agreement has been reached between Metro Legal and the appellant's lawyer. The appellant filed a lawsuit in Chancery Court. They reached an agreement, and the court entered an agreed order that would be remanded for a new vote here. So I'll remake the motion I made before we put it to the heels, that the zoning administrator did not err in that case.
Didn't have enough votes when we first brought it up to come out, is what basically happened. So it comes right down to you, sir.
We need a second if we're going to. So yeah,
second.
Okay, second. Okay, so there is a motion to uphold the decision of the zoning administrator and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. All opposed. So it passes 4-2. And that one's done with. So that's it. That's all our business in, Mr. Hargis.
Yes, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Yeah. And are we here next time too?
We are here next time, too, November
Okay.
the
All right. Motion.
You'll have the
adjourned.
Wi-Fi working for us, right?
I'll do my best.
Maybe I won't drive downtown next time. I'll remember it's here before I drive.
Oh, no.
Did you do that?
I did it.
No, I did that. Yeah, I was
You
at
did
the
too?
I was at the Howard.
Oh,
building.
yeah.
Oh.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.